Welcome to Macworld and welcome to our iPhone 7 prediction video. We're going to talk a little bit about what we think is going to happen in the next generation of iPhone, what the next iPhone could look like, what features it might have, and even what name it could have. Ashley, do you think iPhone 7 is right?
Well, if we go and have a look back at Apple's history, it probably isn't right because we've just had the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus. So you would assume that it would be the iPhone 6S and the iPhone 6S Plus, but obviously now that the Plus has been introduced, it's getting a little bit complicated. So I don't know whether things might change this year.
That's why we've started referring to our bigger iPhone, the successor to the 6 Plus, as the 7. There's also the argument that by calling their next generation of phones the S or the C, Apple's actually not really helping itself, that people are less likely to buy the S version because they feel like it's not the new phone, it's not what's coming, it's not the big breakthrough. So
yeah, a lot of people upgrade every other year, and they see it as the full upgrade is up to the 5 and then the 6 and then the 5S or the 4S, they go, it's not a full one. My theory is that it's going to be 7 as the central one. That will be the update to the iPhone 6, and then there'll be the 7 Plus, and then there'll be a 7 Mini.
Yeah, I like the idea of a Mini. I really think it would be a travesty if Apple actually got rid of the 4-inch iPhone category. Yeah, so we're really.
Well, yeah. So this is the next important thing to talk about is screen size. A lot of people don't think there'll be a 4-inch iPhone anymore, or not a new 4-inch iPhone. I mean, I think I'm with you. I like, this is the 5S. I like the small form factor.
I think towards the end of 2014, there were rumours that there was going to be a mini phone, that it would be a 4-inch, and then early January, the rumours were, no, Apple's not doing that. So the question is Apple potentially going to rebadge the 5S as the 6C in the same way as it rebadged the 5 as the 5C, put a new plastic case on it, maybe different colours, because after all, those were the fashion 2 years ago now. The 5S is apparently a more popular phone than the 6 Plus. So, you know, it's shown that the 4-inch size is popular. So I think
that could be to do with cost as well. Like obviously the 5S at the moment is cheaper than the 6 Plus. The 6 Plus is quite expensive, so you know that's another factor to take into consideration. It might not necessarily be about screen size. And if you look at the competition, there are hardly any 4-inch phones coming out at the moment. So unless it does go back that way, I mean, maybe people will start to think, actually, I did prefer it, and it could go back, you know. But I actually don't think there'll be a new 4-inch phone. I would like it if there was, but I don't think there will be.
There are problems about having 3 different screen sizes. It does complicate the line, and they don't like that. Apple don't like having too diverse a range.
Yeah, but they have definitely diversified a bit more, obviously with the Plus now. So who knows?
Should we talk about some of the new features we think will appear in the 7 or the 6 Plus or the 6S, whatever we're going to call it? What people heard about?
There's some pretty wacky rumours out there. One we've heard is, this is based on a patent that Apple have taken out that's been revealed quite recently. It's the idea that the home button will be like a joystick, that it will be able to I'm not quite sure of the mechanics of this, but it has a spring underneath it and you sort of press it or something, and then it pops out a little bit and then you can move it around and control games like that.
Seems a bit of a niche sort of thing just for the gamers.
Yeah, well it's a relatively large niche, but still it would potentially make the home button break.
Yeah, a bit more fragile.
It's going to go back to the breakage sort of ratings on the 4 and the 4S, where they used to break all the time. And having a spring underneath it sounds very
but it is an intriguing idea, and there's definitely something to look out for, but maybe not in the next generation, maybe a bit further ahead.
Because the other rumour about the home button is that it's going to be integrated into the screen, that there have been patents where you've got the Touch ID actually becomes part of the screen, and that way they can make an even bigger screen and a smaller phone.
And also an interesting aspect to that is that if the whole screen could read your fingerprint, you could set it so that a particular user, such as a child, can only access certain apps, because when they touch that certain app, it will let them in. If they touch one that the parent doesn't want them to look at, then they can't get in.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
There's also, I've seen another rumour that suggests that some of the technology in the Apple Watch will be brought to the phone as well. So you know they've got the sort of
Force
haptic
technology.
feedback and the force technology. That's it. Yeah. So you press the screen and it can tell how hard you've pressed it.
Yeah.
So
I do think about that because you can see why they need that on the Apple Watch, because it's the small screen, they need to be able to make the most of it in the different gestures. The iPhone is big enough for us to be able to interpret it. The simple range of gestures, the tap and the swipe and so on. So they don't really need necessarily to have that, and presumably it's going to come with extra costs. The screen is going to be more fragile, whatever, harder to manufacture. I'm not convinced by that one. I think that's the Apple Watch is the big story at the moment, and people want to carry through anything from that into the iPhone.
yeah.
So I'm not totally convinced.
Speaking of the screen though, there we've got our sapphire glass. Obviously the company that was supposed to be making sapphire glass for Apple has gone out of business.
Making data center. It's a data center.
Yeah,
now, isn't it, for
Apple's
Apple?
turning it into a data center.
Yeah.
The Gorilla Glass people, Corning, they're making, what's it called?
Project Fire.
Project Fire,
Yeah.
which is their sort of answer to.
So potentially that could be the next big thing. So that's like, is it going to be slightly thinner? So it can be just as durable but thinner. I think that's what the idea is. So or even
So
more
that can
durable.
make a lighter phone as well.
Yeah, so lighter phone overall and more space for other technology.
Yeah.
But the other thing about the screen as well is the actual resolution, because at the moment Apple's quite behind in terms of its competition. Samsung and LG have really brilliant screens with pixel densities of over 500 ppi. So at the moment the 6 Plus is 401 ppi. So actually that's quite low in comparison. So I think that could be a potentially huge thing that happens.
It's a good bragging point. I mean, I'm not convinced you can tell the difference. Well, at that sort of pixel density, I think the
There's always the thing about the retina.
Yeah.
You know.
So you can
it's the
tell.
maximum.
You can tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
You I think you can tell.
There's another very similar thing for a lot of other camera phone manufacturers having higher megapixels in their cameras. What are the chances that Apple's going to stick with the old 8 megapixel camera?
Well, I mean, what John Gruber, who writes Daring Fireball, very respected source, says that he's hearing they're going to go for a dual lens camera setup in the next iPhone, and that will deliver quality on a par with digital SLRs. And they'll be able to have optical zooms and things like
the
that.
optical zoom, I think that would be interesting.
I mean, that's more sort of Apple's way, is that they're not so worried about the specs, but they'll go for the actual qualitative differences and so on.
Liquid metal is the only other thing I can think of. Talking about a more durable sort of
that's another thing.
material to build the phone.
Combining it with the sapphire glass,
Yeah.
that could make a potentially lighter device. But I don't think we need a lighter device. It's already light enough, in my opinion. But
Absolutely.
It's something else that Apple can think about in the future.
Yeah.
Well,
Anything else?
the processor obviously will be upgraded to an
A9.
Yeah.
That's apparently Samsung building that one, so they've gone back to
I
Samsung.
think they're going to get those provided by Samsung. It will make sense for Apple if they can have all of the iPhones quite tightly focused on a small number of processors, I think. Because at the moment you've got the A6, the A7 and the A8 all represented in currently available iPhones. Somebody was asking me why Apple bothered to upgrade the processor in the iPad Air when the iPad Air 1 was already fast enough to run all the games on the App Store. And the reason it does this is so that if it can shift everybody onto those processors, then they can actually get the games more demanding. They can encourage the developers to do that. So I think they would like to tighten it up and have everybody in the A8 and this A9.
Well, I guess we'll see.
I think we'll see.
When do we reckon? September? September?
Sure to be September.
9th, 8th September, I reckon the launch.
Do you?
Yeah, that's a Tuesday.
That's very specific.
Good.
And then the
And,
actual availability 10 days after that, presumably.
Yeah.
If you want to read more about the iPhone 7, there's going to be a lot about it on our site, macworld.co.uk.